نه به جمهوری اسلامی، نه به جمهوری اسلامی، نه به جمهوری اسلامی، نه به جمهوری اسلامی، نه. ما صدای آزادی با هم برای آبادی ایران می جنگیم، کنار هم می خوانیم. نابود باد استبداد، نابود باد استبداد. نه به جمهوری اسلامی، نه به جمهوری اسلامی، نه به جمهوری اسلامی، نه به جمهوری اسلامی، نه.
Hello and welcome everyone. We are glad to have you with us here tonight. The aim of this space series is raising awareness on the Islamic regime's propaganda and the issues surrounding it. This is our third session with the topic of IR propaganda to fabricate the Iranian lifestyle. The duration of this session is going to be approximately 1.5 hours. And in the first hour, we're going to have a talk with our guests discussing the topic. And later on, we're going to have a Q&A session with our audience, which can come up and ask their questions and discuss it with our guests. In case you're facing any technical difficulties, be it you don't have any audio or you can't use the space features correctly, please try to close your app and reopen it. And hopefully by then this problem will be solved. And in case this problem happens to me as the host, I will try to immediately create another space session, and we are gonna share the link, and you could just follow that link and rejoin us. All right, tonight we're gonna have a special guest, Mr. Vahedian Shahrudi, which we're gonna try to contact him, which is gonna be a bit difficult since he's in Iran and with all the filtering and issues surrounding it. We are gonna try to contact him, and he's gonna have a message to share with us. So hopefully we'll get to do that. All right, tonight with me, we have two moderators, Sarah and Sirvan. Now I would like to pass the mic to Sarah for her to introduce herself. Okay, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Ardashir. Hello, everyone. Happy to have you here. My name is Sarah. I'm an Iranian citizen. I was born and raised under the gender apartheid dictatorship of the regime in Iran. I am nobody but a freedom seeker. I strongly say no to Islamic Republic in Iran, and I'm not gonna give up until I earn democracy and secularism for Iran. I jeopardize my life to be the voice of the ordinary Iranian people who have been oppressed inside Iran and censored outside of Iran. I put my life in danger because I might be identified through my voice and even receive death threat by the murderous regime. But I will not stop till then. I'm going to pass over the microphone to Sirvan to introduce himself.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Hello, everybody, and very happy to have you with us in this discussion. I'm Sirvan Mansouri, a Kurdish journalist and at the same time refugee rights activist. I'm living in Turkey. I had to flee the country due to political and journalism activities, and I'm living in exile. I published many articles and talks on the human rights activists, and today we are going to have a discussion on the topic with you. Thank you very much. I will give back the mic to Sarah.
Thank you, Sirvan. In this discussion, we are going to talk about how the dictatorship regime in Iran spread propaganda about the Iranians' lifestyle throughout Western media using their lobbies. We would like to emphasize on those aspects that you might have never heard of. So I'm going to pass over the microphone to Sirvan to basically officially start the discussion.
Thank you. So we are starting this discussion with our first guest, Vita Juradus, which she is a women's rights activist. But first, Mrs. Jorabus, please, I want you to introduce yourself briefly to the audience.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Bira Jurabduz. I'm a journalist, and like any other Iranian, I am aware of the propaganda that shows us, pictures us in a different way. I want to start with this. When we talk about IR, Islamic Republic propaganda, we should keep in mind that we are talking about a huge and multidimensional system. Imagine the Nazi propaganda machine and make it more up-to-date, like really up-to-date. There are different layers for different audience, but the layer that we are talking about now...
Sorry, Bita, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but please, before starting, let me to remind the audience some hints about the nowadays women situations in Iran, then we will come back to you. Sorry. As you know, we are confronting a regime which is justifying everything to continue its existing in Iran. One important aspect of Iranian lifetime is about women who are considered nowadays as second-class citizens inside Iran. They have no right to divorce. For example, some aspects to divorce, traveling abroad, or having operation on their bodies, as you know, without the husband's permission. Or they had difficulties about the child custody. But as we know, government is trying to show the public abroad that everything is okay inside Iran. While women have no rights to ride bikes, for example, I want to glean some aspects, to go to gyms, to watch plays, or also to select their own clothing, as you know. In such cases, the government try to manipulate the realities inside the country through their lobbies and agents, such as journalists inside Western countries. Mr. Jabdus, by your opinion, what's our opportunity to naturalize this propaganda and to confront this regime, not to manipulate the realities? What's your opinion about this topic? Go ahead, please. Rita, can you hear me?
Sorry. Siron, you should keep in mind that when we are talking about a system, we are so small in front of them. It is a fact. They have all the means, they have all the tools, and we are like 4 decades, and they are 4 decades ahead of us. They started early, and unfortunately we didn't, the opposition didn't. So we have this problem, but we can use the social media, we can use our contacts, we can use our voices to try to change it. But I really think that it is more of a like organized job. Like we should give it to the networks, like oppositions or like campaigns or something. It's not something that I as a person or you as a person can do it properly or completely. I want to go with the thing that I was explaining about the propaganda that we are confronting. You see, as you mentioned, there are extreme measures of hardness towards women in Iran, and we are aware of that. But no one in the Western society knows it, because they paint it as it is our culture, as Iranian women don't want it, as it is what we are, it is what we want, which is not true, of course. But they make it through a huge project. You see, they start with sending their lobbyists to the Western like politicians and so on, and they go so far and so deep that they go even to their private meetings, they go to private events, and they become friends. So their voices are being heard way much more than us. Then they create the material. They create those photos with girls in colored hijab and like in historical places, and paint it as if Iranian women chose to wear hijab, which we know it is not, but they do it. And then those says so they can go for the economical profit. But one thing that hurts most is the thing that happened the other day with Sabah Khordafshari. As you might have heard, Masih Alinejad reported on Sabah Khordafshari, which you already know. She's an anti-compulsory hijab activist, which is in prison, whom is in prison right now. Masih Alinejad reported on her to Human Rights Watch, and they replied to her with an odd answer. While Sabah is on hunger strike right now, they said our sources said that Sabah and her mother are not in a critical situation. Those sources are the problem. Those sources that seem credible, that made their way to the highest levels of human rights activists and human rights organizations and political parties, those are the problem that we honestly I can say that we as persons cannot do anything about it. It is up to the opposition that they should make this network, they should go this far, and they should make their voice listened. Thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you very much, Bita, for your explanation. We will come back to you in the second half of the discussion. But now let's come back to Sarah and give mic to her. Mic is yours, Sarah. Go ahead.
Thank you, Sirwan. First of all, I would like to thank Rachel Brooks. I would like to warmly welcome her among us. And thank you for joining us. And I would like to go to Mr. Maysam Nouri, and I'm gonna state a problem related to our subject, and then I'll come with a question to you, Mr. Nouri. Discrimination and self-censorship are embedded in the daily lives of Iranians. The constitution of the regime in Iran does not include basic human rights, and its laws are not based on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This forces individual Iranians to lead double lives, keeping their true beliefs and desires to themselves and their family, but not in public, for fear of repression and persecution. Today, in order to survive your daily life in Iran, even preschoolers know very well that she or he has to lie or hide what they do at home or what topics they discuss at home. I believe that if we live in a democratic and secular system, these problems will be resolved and Iranians will enjoy a normal life like many other people around the world. I would like to ask Mr. Nouri, what is your point of view about this topic? But before that, please, Mr. Nouri, briefly introduce yourself for the audience. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Good afternoon to whoever here in the Europe, or good evening whoever here in the US, or good evening to the audiences that hear my voice from Europe or Iran. So my name is Maysam Nouri. I have background in psychology, sociology, and also engineering. So three different category. One of them is totally unrelated to two others, but the two others are related somehow together, like any other Iranian. I closely watch and observe the Iranian issues and political environment specifically, and sociology as well. So this is a very brief introduction. I'm Iranian American. I live in the US now more than 1 decade. So unfortunately, I couldn't travel back to Iran during this time. I came out after 2009 election, and I couldn't come back due to the political problem that we all aware of it. So yeah, I invited this morning for this session, and I just had something to share with you, but I didn't know that it will start with a question. It's okay. I can answer that one because it's more related to psychology as well. So I don't mind to start with that question. So I will go with your question, Sarah. And after that, if you allow me, I would like to share something else as well. So yeah, obviously, if you explain what you said is a fact. Is the fact that anyone who raised in Iran or especially work for that over there, Iranian knows, other audiences should know that the system of the economic system is, I would say, fully governmental in Iran, and so many people directly and indirectly connected to the government, depends on the government. Therefore, we all know that when money comes to the agenda and when your physical need, which needs money and income, come to the agenda, people could be very susceptible, right? Very weak to compromise about what they should do from healthy point of view, from mental health. They can compromise about those because mental health and psychological needs is always in the higher level of the hierarchy of needs in psychology. The first one is physical need and safety and security everywhere in the world, including Iran. So therefore, when people feel that their physical needs, food, water, shelter, sex, those stuff, or marriage, all of those need money and income. So, and when they feel, and of course, safety and security. So when they feel these two basic needs of physical needs are in danger, they sacrifice their psychological health. So, and that's what exactly you saw mentioned in a couple of particular examples, but it's much, much more than that. So I can, and people start to have two faces, one face in home and in their private gathering in our daily life, and the official one that they need to maintain outside. So this is a fact, and it would create serious issue, in my opinion, that it will stay because it's a damage. And even when you come out of the country, it will stay for you for a while, in my opinion. To me, is a distortion, is a deviation from mental health, and it would not be easy to return to that neutral and healthy situation. This is a fact that I can emphasize, but I don't want to go to more detail of psychological, aspect because it takes time and it would I would lose my time. So I hope that I answered your question in high level answer, let's say.
Thank you, Mr. Nouri. Speaking of mental health, the regime in Iran tries to show Iranians as happy people in the media. They want to say that Iranian people chose this lifestyle and they are happy with that, which is not true. Regarding your remarks here, I would like to hear from you that you are living in the U.S. and when you talk to American people who have never been in Iran, not even for 1 hour, what are those people's opinion about this particular thing?
A particular thing means Iran or Iran in general? Yeah. What is that particular thing?
Particular thing about the propaganda that the regime spread in the US that people in Iran are happy and they chose this life, which is not true, specifically about that.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean, I would go with fact. You know, I don't come to the whoever follow my lectures. They may probably realize that I do not come to any meeting with a statement before ready to read my statement and go. No, my work and my interest and focus is analysis. So if you want me to tell you that, yeah, here they say blah, blah, no, I would go to the root cause analysis usually in my lecture, and you know, whenever I have opportunity to share what I have in my mind with others. So I would say, I mean, I've lived in 5 states so far in last 11 years, let's say. So Iran, for American citizens, Iran in general, the way I look at it, is not top priority topics. I mean, I haven't heard in American society talk a lot about Iran, or even many people don't know the difference between Iran and Iraq because they spell very, very closely together. So, therefore, if you ask me the common people, let's say, I would say 70–80% don't follow even Iranian news, and even in the election or anything like that, because back in last election, I felt that, you know, the expectation that we had from American, in my opinion, and I know many people might disagree with me, but Iran, in my opinion, was not even in the 20 item of the list of an American, 80% of American. Therefore, Iran is not matter of focus for American in general. Of course, I'm talking about average people, let's say 80%, even high educated that I work with. So now this is prerequisite for the second question that you asked, because you ask what about propaganda, blah, blah, blah. So that one, I think it matters more with the media. Yeah, we can get together, and I'm with you, if you tell me, hey, let's discuss why the picture that's shown by American media doesn't reflect properly the reality that is happening in Iran. Over there, I'm with you, and I support, and that's why I'm here. But if you ask me in general how American thinks, I think 80% of American even don't think about Iran majority of their time. Yeah, but elite, and that could be the result of that propaganda, or the result. We can discuss that. But in general, most of the people that I work with, or I have interaction with them, they don't think about propaganda in Iran or something like that.
Okay, let me to ask another question from Bita. Bita, please respond me very briefly in 3 minutes. You expressed in your explanation that we can do nothing, anything, we can't do anything regarding the propaganda personally. But you and I, as journalists, what do you think? What's the responsibility and duty of committed journalists regarding these matters? Please, very briefly.
Sure. Siron, I want to go to the Maysam Nouri statement. He said that American people don't care, which is right. But I want to go in it and say that what people think is influenced by what media say. Those mainstream medias create the thinking. So if an American listens to right-wing media, they think that Iran is a terrorist state. They think that it is like oppressive and so on. If they think to the Democrats and like leftists, they think that everything is fine and it is our culture and so on. So we should work on going in the mainstream media and make the mainstream media to choose to say what we want them to say. I'm going to give you an example. Like 4 or 5 years ago, mainstream media, even the Persian one, the Farsi ones, wouldn't cover news about Baloch people. Why? Because they pictured them as like smugglers or like bad people. I don't want to repeat what they say. They made this picture so they couldn't show the poverty there. They couldn't show the crimes that is being done by the IRGC there, because that would change what they were saying before. That would be like exact opposite of it. So in the last years, we saw that Baloch activists made them listen and made them repeat what they want them to say. So this is what we should do. We should try to influence the mainstream media, and I'm gonna be open about it. I'm gonna be honest about it. I'm gonna say it again. It is not something that we as one person can do, but we as a team, yes, we can do it. We as the opposition, yes, we can do it. And this is what we should do. And honestly, I see that there are groups in opposition that are trying to do it, but the problem is we are a bit late, but we are trying to do it.
Thank you, Bita. Bita Jan, I would like to raise the attention about the LGBT community in Iran. You know that Iran is one of a few countries that carry out the death penalty for homosexuality. It is estimated that hundreds or thousands of homosexuals have been executed since Khomeini's call for them to be exterminated in 1979. Transgender identity is recognized through a sex reassignment surgery. Sex reassignment surgery are partially financially supported by the state. Some homosexual individuals in Iran have been pressured to undergo sex assignment surgery in order to avoid legal and social persecution. The regime in Iran either completely denies that the LGBT exist in Iran, like Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, or does not let the reports about the crimes against this community comes to public knowledge easily. We appreciate if you, Bita Jan, share your thoughts with us about the LGBT community in Iran and what they are going through.
So, Sarjan, you know that it is a sensitive issue, and I, for example, I'm not a specialist on this. But what you said is completely true. We know that the LGBTQ community is under so much pressure in Iran. We know that their only choice is to leave the country. It's a fact. But I'm gonna go again on the working networks. I'm gonna go again for that and say that until we learn to work organized, we learn to focus on the issues and go for them, we cannot accomplish anything. You see, the LGBTQ community in Iran is huge. We know that. And there are a few organizations that work with them. But they are not working enough. And they are not working on the sources and purposes that they should do. If there is even one Western politician that doesn't know this, which we know that LGBTQ issues is so sensitive in the Western communities too, and they really cannot be ignorant about it. So if there is even one politician that still doesn't know it, or still goes with the, I don't know, culture or something, it shows that those organizations, those Iranian organizations, didn't do their job properly. We cannot expect one person or one group to do everything. So we should work with networks. We should work with organizations. We should work with exact purposes and go for them. So the I don't know how can I explain it. So our society is broken. It is a fact, because we didn't have the education to be a real and healthy society. So we should work on it on our own. We should work on it with small groups, trying to do small things and grow from it. So I think we did waste enough time, and we should start asking our organizations, our teams, our networks to do the right thing and do it now.
Thank you, Bita, for sharing your opinion about it. Yeah, it's true. There are so much work to do with these issues. We have a lot of issues, unfortunately, and due to the oppression and the censorship, there are no ways to bring up these matters. We need a lot more people to join us and help us with this. Bitajan, I would like to speak about freedom of religion. If you would like to share your opinion with us, but before that, I would like to refer on a survey. The regime in Iran introduced us as a Muslim nation to the world. I would like to bring to your attention a survey from Gaman, the non-profit research foundation, titled Iranians' Attitudes Toward Religion, that cannot be discussed in Iran due to the current restriction and oppression, as you know. The survey was conducted in June 2020. Over 50,000 respondents were surveyed, and around 90% of whom lived in Iran. This study's findings reflect the view of literate Iranian residents aged above 19, who comprised 85% of Iran's adult population. While 32% of the population identifies as Shia Muslim, 5% are Sunni Muslim. Around 9% identified as atheist, 8% as Zoroastrian, 7% as spiritual, 6% as agnostic. Others stated that they identify with or follow Sufi mysticism, humanism, Christianity, the Baha'i faith, or Judaism, among other worldviews. Around 22% identified with none of the above. I highly encourage everyone here to check gammon.com website. I'm going to spell it for you. GAMAAN.org to learn more about this survey in both English and Persian language. As you just heard the results, the population of Muslim in Iran is less than half, which shows the big propaganda of the regime and huge oppression of religion and beliefs. I would like to ask Mrs. Jurabduz or even Mr. Nouri to share their opinions regarding this issue.
Dear Sarah, if I may, I want to go first because I have to leave, unfortunately. I cannot stay any longer. As you may not have like religions that state doesn't recognize them, you cannot change your religion. And of course, I want to emphasize this, that in the law there is nothing that says that you cannot change your religion, but they paint it as an like crime, which is not and should not be, but they paint it as a crime and they go with that. But as you said, there are like a lot of people that there are atheists, they are agnostics, they have all other thinking
دارم تماس
ways,
میگیرم.
which may even not be a religion. And even though the oppression was so hard, they couldn't stop people from thinking. And of course, we should show this to the world. There are multiple organizations that shows it. There is like Iranian atheists and agnostics organization. There is the atheist Republicans that they show to the world that there are like Iranians that are atheists. There are Christians that they changed, they converted from Islam to Christianism, and they show, they talk, they speak, they have the voice, but they cannot be heard because the mainstream media doesn't want them to. So unfortunately, even on this issue, I have to go back and say we should go for the mainstream media. We should force them to cover these issues. There is no other way for this.
Thank you, Bita, for the remarks. Yeah, that's true. Basically, the aim of these English spaces on Twitter is this: we want to break this censorship that we are trapped by this Western media and create our own platform to discuss. And then we're gonna put the record of this session on YouTube, and you can have access and share with your friends, with non-Iranian friends, to hear our true voices. Okay, I'm gonna ask Mr. Nouri if he has some comments about these topics, the religion and the LGBTQ communities, if he would like to share with us.
Sure, Sarah. But before that, I don't know if it's okay, because in the previous section, the topic was media, but you asked me about people, so that's fine. I have no problem with that. But the reason I'm saying that I couldn't cover what I had in my mind to share with you regarding what's going on media and the different scenario that I have in my mind. Is it okay if we get back to that discussion for a while, or no?
Yes, sure.
Sure. Okay. So I want to be I'm asking. So I think I can say that's why I got invited to speak about how views related to Iranian had been reflected in the mainstream media, especially in the Western and democratic country. And in my opinion, the reason we focus on Western countries, especially, is because at least middle class in Iran have traditionally had this assumption that democratic parties, government, and media consider human rights, I would say, as one measure and factor, of course, in the middle of other measure and factors, in their vision and in their strategy. So by saying that, I mean we are mature enough. We have had enough experience not to be idealistic. That hey, only human rights is their concern. No. We are mature enough to understand that human rights is like a value that should be balanced with other things like profit, like power. I myself, I think I'm not idealistic to assume that they should care about our human rights. But I think we all, at least in my mind, this assumption has been challenged and even faded in many people like me in recent years. That does the Western country media really has a balanced and optimized, balanced understanding about these factors? So I have enough. By saying that, I can compare between last 3 decades, and by giving some information about that, I can convey what I have in my mind. When I compare how a student protest in 1999 reflected in Western country, or how 2009 post-presidential election reflected in the Western country, and then when I compare it with this bloody November 2019 that we had 2 years ago, how that one reflected, I could see a meaningful and drastic change in their approach. And that's something that I would like, and even I would like to ask others to think about what happened in this during last decade. What happened that made Western countries and Western media to change their strategy? This is the assumption that I have. You may not agree even in that time they reflected, but I do believe that the reflection was much better
اردشیر واحدیان
20 years ago or 15 years ago, because how many people killed in 2009 presidential election? Of course, no one knows the exact number, but it was like a multiply of 10, right? Like 50 to 100, but no resources mentioned, as far as I remember, 200 or something like that. So, in mathematical language, we say order of magnitude was 10, like, as I said, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, something like that, right? But the reflection was really widespread. I was in exhibition in summer 2009 somewhere in Europe, and everyone asked me. It was a technical exhibition. It was not related to politics or something like that, but it was reflected much more than what happened 2 years ago. But 2 years ago, the scale of victims was hundreds, 500, 600, even 1,500 or 2,000. All of these, it's like 10th time more. The scale is 10th time more than what happened in 2009. And what we saw, and I'm fair to say that yeah, I think Iranian people are right. I am one of those people that others usually criticize. Hey, you are like you say apologists, not like that, but why you are trying to decrease that level of crime. But in this case, I'm with the average people. I can see that in a meaningful way the reflection got decreased, and that's something that we should think about it. I have different scenario for what happened in last decade that we can discuss later. I don't want to talk too much about this, but I want others also think with neutral mind, not just by conspiracy theory, by fact. We get together and think what happened in last decade. If you agree what I'm saying, that in last decade something changed. Before was not bad as this, but now, as you said, when you open the media, you don't see any, or in Western countries, just okay, this internet got blocked or something. It decreased to the connection of the internet, but our people are dying there. So I'm really here with my people that we should think, and we should shout, and we should whatever we could to impact the media. I think this is very important. One of the ideas that I want to share with you, I think the misunderstanding that the Western country has about the so-called moderate administration, that is a factor to me, that they decrease, they try to, how can I say, filter the news in the hope that in reality maybe they want to be what we call in political science pragmatic approach, that if we magnify or we reflect all of those things in the field, we cannot negotiate enough, and we cannot convert to the conclusion with this so-called moderate government. That's one aspect that I think this is one of the reasons, at least. And here, that's our role that many of our average people, ordinary people like me are doing, to say to the media that no, this assumption is wrong. This assumption is wrong. That government is not moderate. It is impossible under that constitution that to have a moderate government. So we should introduce how the constitution works, how the system, how dictator make this declare to show others that we have election, but it does not work, and the spectrum get narrower and narrower more. So here I want to finish this section, but I'm open to discuss it later. So I think this is very important. This is realistic. This is something real that I would like to work with you and be on the side of people on this one. For the second question that you had about religion, I have my own analysis, but I don't know if I have enough time or you want the discussion turn around.
Thank you, Mr. Nouri. You can speak about it just to wrap up your remarks in 1 minute. Thank you.
In 1 minute, for the second subject, I cannot. I can give some layout of the discussion. So I need at least 3 minutes to go to that discussion. But yes, Constitution of the Iran is completely has discrimination. I mean, in a systematic way. So we know that the law is per religion. Therefore, this is a fact. And as I said, is a systematic discrimination. It's not just freedom. Means that people with other religion discriminated, biased. They do not have the rights of other people. So, for example, when you, I think I myself, I have estimation, at least for 20 years ago, there are 10% of Sunnis people in Iran. I mean, that's a number that I have for like 3 decades ago. So, but when you look at the officials, I mean, it should be like 10% of Sunnis in the government, right? But we don't see that. That tells you. And then my investigation showed, in addition to what you can see on the rule on the constitution, there are some non-written rules that, for example, in governmental companies, which widespread, which means everything to me, they don't allow Sunni people come promote, and I have document for that. They don't allow other religion even promote to a higher position. So there is a systematic filter to control that. There are many facts that we can review. Yeah, of course, religion, but the number that you gave, that it decreased, for decrease of religion tendency in Iran, I had a study before. I think, in general, my friend, in general, so the tendency to religion everywhere in the world is decreasing. Even if you just Google it, same thing in the US, okay. But the diminishing rate is much less in average in the world rather than Iran. This tells me that there is an extra factor in that. So I think the decreasing of the religion tendency, in my opinion, as psychology, is not due to intellectual development, or is not a portion of it is, but that extra portion that I explained is just reaction to the government. I have a sign. I can see people are still rigid. These are people are still rigid. They are more passionate even now that they got passionateness toward ancient Iran. They are very passionate. These are all proof for me that no. These are not non-religion. Religion is still in their background because they are passionate. They are rigid. Non-religion people, logical people, intellectual people are not rigid. So to me, as I said, yes, it decreased. A portion of it is natural. A portion of it due to the global everywhere. A portion of it is like a reaction to the government. That's how I interpret the non-religious tendency in Iran.
Thank you, Mr. Nouri. All right, now we have Mr. Wahidian Shahridi with us. Mr. Shahridi is one of the signatories of statement of 14 political activists in Iran, and he's currently out of prison and under surveillance by the regime. Nevertheless, he has stated that he will keep crossing the red lines and continue opposing the regime with no fear. He has to unfortunately live under the radar not to get arrested, but then he is keeping up the fighting spirit. Mr. Shahridi.
بله، درود بر شما قادر عزیز و دوستان حاضر در این اتاق. ببینید امشب من میخوام چیزهایی رو بگم.
I'm trying to. I will try to translate what he's saying. He says hi to everyone and the audience.
من نمیخوام امروز از این صحبت بکنم که چرا ملت ایران از اون استانداردهای زندگی که در غرب وجود داره برخوردار نیستن. بلکه میخوام امروز اون تصویر واقعی که مردم
Tonight I don't want to talk why the Iranian people are enjoying the standards that the Western world and their societies are enjoying.
میخوام اون تصویر واقعی که مردم ایران در داخل ایران باش مواجه هستن اون رو به دوستان خودمون نشون بدیم که این تصویر چه تصویری است.
I want to show the real picture of what the Iranian society has to face in Iran.
جمهوری اسلامی در طول سالهای گذشته تونسته به کمک یک دستگاه عظیم پروپاگاندای خودش به خصوص مهره‌های صادراتیش در خارج از کشور تصویری از مردم ایران ارائه بده که این تصویر واقعا ساختگی است.
The Islamic Republic has tried for 42 years with its lobbyists around the world to paint a picture about the Iranian society that is not at all true.
تصویری که مردم رو در خیابان‌های شمال شهر تهران یا شهرهای دیگه نشون میده که آزادانه در حال رفت و آمدن. برخی از خانم‌ها حجابی هم بر سر ندارن. ماشین‌های لوکسی در خیابان‌ها دیده میشه و از یک رفاه نسبی داره با تصویر صحبت میشه.
A picture that shows people are having a they're well off, they're living in very good neighborhoods, driving luxurious cars and having a very high quality of life.
اما تصویر واقعی اون مردمی هستند 60 میلیون نفری هستند که در بین این جمعیت 85 میلیونی دیگه نه تنها قدرت خرید گوشت و مرغ رو ندارن بلکه برنج هم دیگه نمیتونن بخرن به عنوان یک رزق بسیار ساده.
But the actual truth is that 60 million of the 85 million population of Iran don't even have the possibility and they cannot afford not only chicken or beef, but now they've reached the level that they can't even afford buying rice.
امشب میخوام از صدها هزار نفر و شاید میلیون ها نفر انسانی صحبت بکنم که در حاشیه شهرهای بزرگ و در مناطق دور افتاده حتی قدرت اجاره کردن یک منزل کوچک رو ندارن و به گودال خواهی کوچ کردن، گودال هایی درون زمین میکنن و خانوادگی در درون گودال ها زندگی میکنن.
Tonight I want to speak about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who are living in outreaches of Iran, faraway places, which they can't even afford to rent a place to live in. And they are actually living in actual pits in the floor that they have it and they live together with their families in it.
و به عنوان یک زندانی سیاسی از زندان‌هایی برای شما صحبت می‌کنم که الان در اون زندان‌ها بدترین جنایت‌ها علیه بشریت و بدترین نوع نسل کشی در حال اجرا هست بر علیه مخالفانی که بر علیه سیاست‌های این نظام در حال مبارزه هستند.
And as a political prisoner, I want to mention and talk about the regime's jails and how the human rights are not at all followed there, and the amount of crimes that are happening there, and the genocides that they are having against the political prisoners and people who oppose this regime.
و یک جمله خلاصه اگر بخوام قاب تصویری از ایران واقعی به شما عرضه بکنم، در این قاب تصویر شما اعدام، شکنجه، زندان، ترور، شلیک به هواپیمای مسافربری، قتل عام جوانان در کف خیابان، فقر و فلاکت، فحشا، اعتیاد و هر فسادی رو که در روی کره زمین وجود داره همه اونها رو نظام جمع کرده و بر سر مردم ایران خراب کرده.
And if I want to summarize everything in a sentence and give you a true picture of what's happening in Iran, I can't say anything but the executions, the torture, the terror, and the poverty, and the
جان یکم شمرده تر بگید که راحت تر ترجمه کنم.
Oppose the regime and they get killed for it.
اینجا در درون ایران مردم ایران اون اکثریتی که بسیار زیاد هستند، این اقلیتی که حاکم بر ما هست، اقلیتی که نهایتاً شاید در بهترین حالت 10 میلیون نفر از جمعیت ایران رو نشون میدن و بجز این 10 میلیون نفر اون جمعیت توده‌ای که وجود دارد هر کدامشان در طرق مختلف تحت این شکنجه ها، تحت این نسل کشی قرار گرفتن.
The majority of people in Iran are under constant torture and genocide by the ruling minority, which won't exceed 10 million in Iran. And they're being suppressed and killed for opposing this regime and fighting this regime in their own ways.
و آخرین جملات خودم رو با این مطلب آخر میرسونم که جهان غرب شاید از فروپاشی این نظام به این دلیل ترس داره که شاید با سیل مهاجرت‌های بسیار زیاد ایرانیان مواجه بشه، شاید با هرج و مرج در منطقه روبرو بشه و به این خاطر هست سعی میکنن که از همین نظام پوسیده و فاسد یک جوری حمایت بکنن.
And for my final remarks, I would like to say that the Western world and the Western governments may not want this regime to be overthrown because they're afraid of waves of immigrants that could result after the overthrow of this regime that could move towards Europe and create a crisis in the Middle East and also in Europe. That's why they are continuing and letting this regime to be in its place and cooperating with it.
سران غرب، اتحادیه اروپا و آمریکا و کشورهای آزاد هیچ وقت صدای واقعی مردم ایران رو نخواستن بشنوند، اما اینجا به عنوان یک ایرانی که در درون ایران زندگی میکنم و سالها در زندانهای مختلف رژیم رو با تمام شکنجه‌هاش دیدم، به هویت واقعی و ماهیت واقعی رژیم رو مشاهده کردم، به شما خواهم گفت و این پیشگویی رو دارم انجام میدم. اگر به مردم ایران کمک نشه تا از شر این رژیم راحت بشیم، مطمئن باشید که دامنه این کشتارها، دامنه این صدور تروریسمی که فعلا در منطقه خاورمیانه محدود شده به زودی به اروپا خواهد رسید.
The Western politicians have always denied real demands of the Iranians and have ignored their voices. But as an Iranian and as a political activist who's been imprisoned in Iran and has seen the situation in the jails there and the crimes that's happening there, I would like to make this kind of prophecy that this regime is currently exporting its terror and terrorism in the region. But if this continues and goes on and the situation isn't changed, this could very well get into the European borders and create chaos there as well.
و آخر اینکه اگر به مردم ایران کمک نمی‌کنن، تنها تقاضای ما اینه که حامی این رژیم خشونت پرور، این رژیم تروریست پرور نباشد و اجازه بدن ملت ایران خودشون میتونن و این قدرت رو دارن. اگر رژیم مورد حمایت غرب قرار نگیره، این رژیم رو در سریعترین شکل ممکن ساقطش بکنن و کاری بکنن که نه تنها مردم ایران بلکه ملل خاورمیانه و همه مردم جهان بتونن نفسی به راحتی بکشن و در راه حرکت به سوی صلح پایدار همه ما بتونیم قدم برداریم. سپاس از شما.
And if the West isn't actually going to directly help the Iranian people, they could at least not stop cooperating and stop signing agreements with this regime, and they can be sure that by letting us and cooperating with the Iranian people to overthrow this regime, we could very well be in a much better world, in a more peaceful world, which we don't have a regime that would export terrorism, and we could very well have a much better Middle East and the whole region. And he says thank you. Actually, okay, I don't see anyone requesting anything right now. So actually, I would like to discuss an issue myself with our guest, Mr. Nouri. And it is about how the regime uses its media and the whole broadcasting machine. Specifically, I've noticed this myself, how in, like, for example, these TV shows, the night shows, I've noticed it myself that in the beginning, first of all, I mean, they use the popular celebrities to have as moderator, because since they're very well known, to obviously attract viewers, and these shows usually have this comedic atmosphere to them, which is like new for the people in Iran, and it's different with what the regime normally does, having sadness carnivals all around the year. And one thing that I've noticed, usually in the beginning of these shows, when you look at the audience, you see people with much more openly worn hijab, not very conservative, not the way which the regime usually actually wants it to be, with those black whales, so-called chadors. In the beginning, it is like that, but then as the show goes on, and the show gets more popular and attracts much more viewers, you can very noticeably see that in the audience we start to have more and more conservative people there, sitting there with conservative hijab, with the chadors and everything. And even if they're called on the stage, they usually pick the ones which are have this image that the regime wants to feed the society, and show that, okay, this is the how the dress code has to be. This is one matter. And the second matter that is also actually discussed a lot, even in TV shows and in series, you rarely see the villains of the show, or the bad guys, to have religious names, or Arabic names, which is goes back to it being religious. And you always have the villains with Iranian names, and not vice versa. The good guys are always a bit religious. And this is what a picture of a good guy is, and is apparently supposed to be. And which is reminds you of back in during the Cold War in the American movies, the bad guys were all usually mostly Russians or communists. And it brings the question that, does this regime, I mean, it's quite apparent, but then does this regime see the everyday Iranian, the normal Iranians, as the enemy here, that they try to suppress them and their traditions and promote their own religious ideas? What is your thought on this matter?
Dear Ardeshir, you mean a TV show? Since I'm not following Iranian TV show that much, you mean something that government production?
Yeah, the public ones. The public ones that is shown on the channels. Yes,
yeah.
Like the night shows of such. Yeah.
In government media, right?
Yes,
Inside Iran.
Yes.
I see. Yeah, unfortunately, at least for last 10 years, I don't follow one like many other Iranian. So I don't follow those one, but I do remember what you are saying. But my question, yeah, of course. See, Iranian regime is not a usual, is not a natural. In another room, I explained a couple of days ago that I mentioned a couple of reasons that I do believe that this regime would be collapsed. And over there, I itemized my reason. And one of them is this, the first one, that I do believe that this regime is against the nature, is like you go against the nature. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, when you go against the nature, you should deviate the picture. When you control especially after 2010, when you control a government that 70% or 60% or 80%, I don't have scientific data, So, but we all feel that it should be around that 80% against you. So it is not easy. You are moving against the nature, because it would be very hard and expensive to control and run this machine, rather than running a system that 70%, 80% of the people are okay with you. Okay, that would be much cheaper to handle that business than this one. So, and one of them is the picture. Yes, when you have a system that the 80% of the picture is not in the way that you want to, so you should, what is the good word? Distort. You should distort the fact in the way that you want, okay, and make distorted fact. Means distortion means like make something, you know what distortion means, right? So and what you explained to me is part of that distortion. You should show to your internal audiences that religious is good. Always Hassan, Hussein, Muhammad are good guy. As you said, Kurosh, Darius, Hushang are I'm sorry, could be bad guy. So these are all, I think, is very, very familiar, and we grew up and we very familiar with this one. But to me, we should not focus on this one. If you ask me, we should focus on the other side of the story that you focus in this meeting, and the agenda carry that meaning, which means we should focus on things that how can we help that the real picture can we reflect better in the world with realistic fact. We should not, I always tell to my audiences when we get to this point, that we should not go to conspiracy theory. We should not focus too much on something, even if it's not conspiracy theory, even if it is realistic. We should not focus on something that is outside of our circle of control. This is the sentence that my audience hear a lot from me. I mean, something like Russia wants this, China wants that. There are some companies in the world that control the world. All of the. I'm a psychologist. If someone comes to me and say, "Hey, what should I do to change my life?" I would say, "Okay, define your circle of control. Know which factors and variables are outside of that circle, and what factors are inside of the circle. Be aware about outside of the circle. I have no problem with that, but don't focus on outside of the circle. Focus on the factor and measure and thing that you can change is inside the circle." That's a very important psychological principle that I would like to share. Whoever Iranian in a position like me, let's focus on something that we can change. That's the American approach as well. You cannot talk with many of American if you nag and you talk negatively about something, pollution, environment, bad world, company. If you talk with American in general, not for more than 2 3 people, you would lose them as your friend. Being positive is important, and positive does not mean we should ignore. As I said, we should focus on something that we can change. I do believe that we should impact the politician in the US. We should work in the same that our enemy Nayak and other stuff are working, with in the other room I also said, with the terminology that audiences like. When I was looking at your audiences, I felt that whenever we deviate from the language that they can interact, they can involve, they leave our room. Because, as I said in the other meeting as well, we should get familiar with the terminology, with language, with mindset of the American European in order to carry our concern. And one of them is not be too naggy, about what we cannot change. Why this? What all of the in Persian rooms I hear a lot, and I try to help. All of the government are against us. I feel, sometimes when I go to some Persian room, I feel I want to do suicide myself, because we live in a black world. We cannot change anything. Our war is not with the Islamic Republic. We should war with all of the world. And I say, no, we cannot win that fight. So we should be realistic. I don't want to say we should be too positive, but we should be realistic. We focus and we discuss how we can modify the picture. We can help and gradually change the distorted picture that now is reflected in Western media. Sorry for my long explanation.
Thank you very much. I think Sirvan opened his mic, but then we can't hear you if you're talking, Sirvan. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. So I would like to ask our moderators if they have any final remarks. Please go ahead, or else we could close this session.
I think Sirvan would like to share something with us. Sirvan?
He's left the session. I think he encountered some difficulties here.
Okay. As I said before, the aim and the goal of these English spaces is that we Iranians would like to directly connect ourselves to the outworld, because there are so many propaganda out there. There are so many false information, disinformation, false narratives. So we would like to correct those false narratives outward. So we created our platform here, and what you can do is that share these spaces with others, invite them, let them know that we are here. We would like to talk to them. We would like them to hear us, and these spaces will be recorded, and we will shortly put online in the YouTube. We can share the links with you. And like I said, we don't want this regime in Iran. We will go through whatever it takes, but we will topple this regime down. Whether Western countries help us or not, the only thing we want from the Western countries, the democratic countries, is that if you don't want to help us directly, at the very least, stop appeasing, stop any kind of deal with this regime. So thank you so much of all of you joining us here. Ardashi, if you have any comments, any remark, you can share, and then we can wrap up.
Thank you. I think Sirvan is back with us, and he wants to talk. So can you try? We can see if we can hear you.
Thank you, Ardashir. Yeah, I was interrupted and came back. I have a question from Mason. You expressed in your explanation some minutes ago that about 80% of the Americans even don't pay attention to what is happening in Iran now. Okay, I have a question. Mason, by your opinion, what's the reasons, if you can list them briefly, and then what is the share of the Iranians themselves inside America? I mean, Iranian Americans.
Excuse me, for a moment, I got disconnected. I couldn't hear you. Could you repeat one more time your question?
Yeah, yes. You expressed that about 80% of the Americans don't pay attention to what is happening in Iran. I have a question. Can you briefly list the reasons, and then what's the share of the Iranian American themselves regarding this issue?
What Iranian American do for this
No,
you said?
What is the Iranian American shares? I mean, what percent of Iranian Americans pay attention to the issue themselves?
No, I didn't say that Iranian American didn't pay attention. I said American.
No, I understand. What is the Iranian Americans shares themselves? I mean.
I don't hear the word you are saying. What is the verb you said?
Let me to clarify you. As you know, there are many Iranian Americans living inside America. What they do themselves during all this time in order to reflect the voice of the people.
Yeah. That was my first understanding, that you are saying, okay, now what American Iranians are doing in order to fix this problem, right?
Yeah, right.
That is your, okay, yeah. Okay, I understand. So, I think the majority of Iranian American that I know, or I, interact during last 11 years, they are part of opposition. They hate this government. They dislike this government. But of course, they are also diverse. There is wide diversity in our society, in like any other society, and that's something that we should really consider and respect and maintain, in my opinion. But what do I think? Whoever the majority of people, what can they do? I mean, personally, I know they are, majority of them are very passionate, and whenever it get to the talk, they mention, they let others know what's going on. Everyone with their own knowledge. Up and down. Of course, we have different level of knowledge. But if you are asking me what are they doing systematically, or because face-to-face information would not work, right? If you go to whoever your colleague, and when they ask you, you write the truth as far as you know. But that way, that's something that majority of people, the ones that I know, are doing. When someone asks about you, Iran, when you are talking about Iran, we explain that what's going on. And I saw others, same thing. The majority of them, really majority, I would say 8 or 9 out of 10 are very passionate about Iran and what the crimes that this cruel government are doing. But if you ask me what systematic thing are they doing, which is a better question in my opinion, I would say here we have a big problem. The other side, Nayak, high educated people, high paid people usually. But if you follow their their background, they get together. What are their resources? I haven't done detailed investigation, so I cannot say. But I am very suspicious to them, like you, that and about their resources. But we suffer from systematic work, systematic union, whatever team, whatever we call it. Teamwork is weak, I agree. And we don't spend money. That's another thing. If I make a lot of money, I should consider, because we don't have any other, resources. If we find another resources, they have their own expectation. That's the fact. Look at this guy. The guy named his name cabinet maker in LA, right? He made that billboard and put it in front of New York. Who paid? His friend around him. We should do that, but in my opinion, with more high educated people, with lawyer, with those stuff to make union, to unite us, and then honestly speaking, we should spend money on it. We should, and that's the thing that we Iranians sometimes it's hard for us when we get to money, right? So, and we should get resources, money, financial resources to do something professional and find a tribune, find something somewhere to speak out. That's something that, dear C1, I believe we should work, and we haven't worked enough. People have safety and security concern. They want to return to Iran. Maybe some of them. I know. I have worked in big companies and with even other Iranian. Some of them have concern. You know what, Maysam, we want to come back to Iran. We don't want to, go back easily. No problem. My dad is there. Something like that, right? Many people, when it gets to something that needs your name, your identity, to go talk with your state legislative. That's easy. Go in front of legislative room and over there talk with your representative. When it gets to this point, people don't work in a systematic way, and that is very important, and I would like to talk in next meeting about this stuff more.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Maysam, for your explanation. We are going to finish the session due to time. I will give back mic to Erdeshir, please.
Thank you, Sirwan. I see Mr. Mustatek wants to share his opinion with us, but then please make it as brief as possible because we are short on time. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to welcome the audience first. Then I like to make a remark of the point Mr. Nuri made. Problem, he's right. Basically, no one in the Western world, no ordinary people in Western world, really interested in Iranian news or what's happening in Iran right now. So, but we have to remember the Iranian government is spending loads of money to finance the propaganda team, including like Nayak and the other people in the Western world, so Western media. Unfortunately, Mr. Milton left the space. He made a very interesting point last week, and he was talking about the finance and about the money and about the fund. Unfortunately, we can't sit here. We can plan many things, but when it's coming to finance it, we always weak on that, and our plans collapse usually because of the finance. I think one of the things we have to think about it seriously right now when we're trying to organize ourselves and to make a platform for ourselves as the opposition of the Iranian government. I think we have to think very seriously about how to fund it, because it's become very crucial at this point to finance our ideas, because without financing our ideas are not going to move forward as much as we like to. I would like to, I think we had only one, Mrs. Brooks. I really like to hear from Mrs. Brooks and what she made for herself of this space and what she get from this space, because our point is to these people from Western world. Otherwise, there is no point we sit here and speak English. Thanks for time and listening to me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Musatek. Mr. Martin, do you have anything to share with us? I've sent you the request if you've received it. Okay, maybe you're facing a technical difficulty. Okay, now it worked now. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Hamid and Maysam, you're speaking about opening our own lobby. And I'm not going to get into a long story, but I've been doing the refugee advocacy for Iran for 11 years with no pay. I have yet to see some very well-off Iranian Americans come forward with any donations. And one is a trust issue. Seems money goes out and no one knows where it goes. You have someone that's very interested in going to Washington, opening an office, who's familiar with television and broadcasting. He's Iranian, he's a dissident, and he's a PhD, one of the smartest people in America from Iran, and that's on record. And his name is Dr. Reza Parchizadeh. Some may like him, some may not. I've worked with him for 5 years, and he's willing to do it. And all it would take is $1,000 or $2,000. There's 1 million Iranian Americans here. Many of them are millionaires. Some make in excess of $200,000 and $300,000 a year. $1,000 donation from 200 Iranian Americans could open an office in Washington, D.C., where we can type up your request, and go and visit each congressional and Senate office. Unless you have someone in Washington to represent you, you're going to go nowhere. You can't do it from LA, you can't do it from New York, and you can't do it from Florida. You know, there's others that would come on the staff, there's others that would volunteer, but you need someone in charge. You need someone with an education, the writing skills, the Persian, the American. Reza is a master in both languages and knows other languages, Arabic and so forth. But he would be a good representative down there. But he needs to be paid. He has a family. And I don't know what his request would be, but I would imagine, you know, to start off with, it would be $40,000 or $50,000 a year. If you bring in $200,000 from Iranian Americans and anyone else in the United States that would wish to donate, you could open the office down there and start working from there. That's what's needed. And trust. I'm sure Reza would give a full accounting of all incoming and outgoing funds. And that's just one suggestion. I'm sure there's a lot of Iranian Americans here that would love to open an office in Washington, but it costs money. And could be a topic for an upcoming meeting, how we form our own lobby office. You know, the MEK is listened to in Washington. They have an office in Washington. I'm just saying, I'm not condoning Mariam Rajabi. I'm just saying they have an office, and that's why they're heard, because they're there every day. NIAC has been in Washington for 11 years. But, well, they were there before that, but I've been fighting them for 11 years. And unless we shut them down and expose the true wishes of the Iranian people and get to the networks and get people on TV, like Reza has made numerous appearances on both English and Iranian TV networks. He's well-spoken. He can hold a conversation, and he knows the points of interest that we all have. So that's freedom for the Iranian people. It's the Iranian people's choice. It's not mine. I'm an American. I'm trying to help. Time and resources are limited. As many of you know, I haven't been on as much in the last year or so. I'm still working on Iran matters on a daily basis, but it's on different subject matter than refugees. And I also work a full-time job, so I don't have much time for myself. I do what I can for Iran, and I will continue to do so. But the Iranians need to step up and chip in to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin, and your efforts to help the Iranian people. I would like to thank you, Mr. Nouri and Ms. Rachel Brooks, for being with us tonight, and the audience as well, obviously. And I would like to remind you that this session, as our previous sessions, is recorded and is going to be uploaded on YouTube. I see that Sirwan wants to make a remark, so I'll pass the mic to him, and goodbye to everyone.
I want to thank Mr. Walt for his good explanation and also his suggestion. We invited Reza several times to participate in these meetings, but unfortunately, he has some difficulties with his Twitter account. I don't know what should done to remove it, but I hope to invite him again for the next session, if possible. And as Mr. Walter expressed, this is a fight between Iranian lobbies and the patriots, I think. We must establish, and the organization look like, for example, NIAC. But as Mr. Walt said, it costs, and the Iranian patriots should pay monthly, for example, to pay for this organization to establish inside the United States. That's the good suggestion, I think, too. Thank you very much. How do you make it yours?
Yeah, I think just one thing that
Yes.
Mr. just 30 seconds.
yeah, this should be discussed in detail. Yeah, I opened the discussion, right, about union and make united, and then work here in a systematic way. I think that could be specifically a good topic for one topic. Focus on this issue, on this matter, and also talk about the technical aspect of it. I really appreciate Mr. Walton as well to emphasize on this one and open more detail. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And okay, I will be closing this session now. Yeah, thank you everyone, and goodbye.